Hello, Jill.
Hey, Barbara. Do you go by Barbara or Barbara Ann?
Well, there's a funny story about that for another
Mm.
day. I go by Barbara. I go by Barbara Ann professionally because there was another person who had the barbaramichaels.com.
Oh my
And that
goodness.
wasn't even her name, it was her pen name. She was an author. And then the
Okay.
funny thing is that she passed away and I had barbaramichaels.com. So I started going by Barbara Ann Michaels professionally. So then I went on, I
Okay.
did a domain back order on barbaramichaels.com and she passed away. And then years later, there was an auction on barbaramichaels.com. And I'm the only person who bid. And now I own that domain also for the mad sum of $10 US. But it doesn't make sense to use it because I've been going by Barbara Ann Michaels all this time. So there are numerous people in the world that call me Barbara Ann, even though I go by Barbara, and I don't stop them. And somehow I think that relates to our conversation about permission. Well, like, what are you allowed to call yourself?
Right.
You can go by someone else. So we get a name. Somebody else gave us the name. We
Right.
can choose our own nicknames. Usually,
Right.
other people choose our nicknames.
Totally.
So now maybe I have a name somebody else gave me, and a nickname someone else gave me. And where's my self determination? And then
Ooh.
some people change their names. And if someone changes their own name and says, I elected to change my name, other people look at them like, why did you do that?
It's
Why didn't
weird,
you
right?
accept the name someone else gave you? And I think that that relates to permission. And because someone else gave you this rules, why are you changing the rules? Because I want to. It's my name. It's who I am in the world. But why are you doing that? Those are the rules. That's your name. And with this final thought that we carry around the rules we've been given like they're our name, like that's what we're called, that's who we are, that's what we're like. And we carry those things around unless we decide to rename ourselves, unless we decide to rename what our rules are. What's your version?
We carry the rules we've been given around like our name. I love that. And the fact that there's something like instantly and inherently so transgressive about the mere thought of playing around with that so much of this identity that we are given feels, as if it was, laid down by some higher authority whose power should be, unquestioned. And it's like, no, it was just a set of choices that some other people made on my behalf. Which leads to my story. So I'm Jill Reilly in my on my birth certificate. My mother wanted to call me Jillian. And this might date me, and her, but there was a character on her favorite soap opera whose name was Jillian. It was Ryan's Hope. It was around in like 1970. And my father thought it was a very weird name, and no, I had to be Jill. So she got overruled and I was Jill, but there was this longing in my mother, and I would hear about it like as I was growing up that you are actually Jillian, I think you're Jillian. And so I also did the weird thing of kind of reclaiming Jillian at a point in my life when I was like, actually, for reasons I can't explain, that just feels right for me right now. Again, it was something like I think what we're playing around with is this, how much permission do we have to shape our own identities, to determine our own identities? And as you say, your name feels like the starting point of that process. So I love the fact that we both have a story to be told about our names.
And then the other thing is, I went through a long period of time where I felt energetically my name should be Kate. And then I met a woman who told me that she could tell you what your name should have been energetically before you were born. And she told me that my name should have been dot,
Okay.
dot, dot, pause, 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 cliffhanger,
Yeah.
Donatella. She told me my name should have been Donatella. Interestingly, there was a time where I would, when I was a young woman, a younger woman, because I am ageless, thank you, uh, that sometimes if I was in a social situation, like at a nightclub or something like that, and I met someone, but I didn't really want to reveal my name to them, as if revealing my name is revealing something about myself. That's the other hilarious thing about names. It's
Right.
that what is it? If I tell you my name, I'm basically telling you what someone else decided to call me. It has nothing to do with who I am, but somehow people feel if they know each other's names, you know each other. I would sometimes call myself Diane. That was my nightclub name, is Diane. Have you ever had a fake name for any reason, Jillian?
No, I haven't. I am not nearly that sort of nimble, name nimble.
Well, you could take on a fake name for a few hours
I'm
and see
I'm
what and see what it feels like, and I could too.
I'm thinking this is our experiment, and I love it because you know why I love it? So what we were playing around with was the broad theme of bursting the trouble bubble, which is what we're afraid of, the kind of deep-seated relationship we have to permission to, decide who we are and what we do, whether that's at a micro level or a macro level. And what I love about it is that, I think our brains and our hearts, when we start to talk about that, immediately goes to a very dangerous is too strong a word, but, something that will feel transgressive in a whoa sense. But I actually love the fact that that's just playful. That's just silly. That feels almost childlike to kind of just make up a name and a new identity and roll with it for a few hours.
Yeah, and someone could say, "What's your name?" And you could say, "I go by whatever that is," because it's true for at this moment. Some options are I could just adopt a fictitious name for a few hours, and even the word fictitious. It's like
Yes,
why is it fictitious to decide that I want to call myself something for a while? So
right,
that
right.
because other people won't be able to identify me if I have a different name. And what does it mean to be identified? Who are they identifying? Their version of who they think I am. This could go down many
Wait,
trails.
I'm I I've already decided I'm Donatella, so
You're Donatella?
I'm gonna be. I don't know where I'm going,
Wow.
Donatella, but I mean that name is just I couldn't decide. I had a Ninja Turtle and Donatella Versace flash up in my head at like the exact moment, both of whom like, wow, okay. That will take me well outside my comfort zone as Jillian, upstanding citizen. What
Hmm.
what I love about this, when you start pulling the threads apart of identity and permission to show up as whatever version of yourself suits you in the moment, you realize how illusory, as you say, this fixed sense of who we are is. It's all artifice. It is so fluid and so incredibly malleable in so many ways, and yet so many of us never even close to playing around with that. We take that identity, we take that story, we take those rules, and that's just it. That that's the game we're playing for the rest of our lives. And I love this idea of just starting to kind of, with the most playful spirit. Hmm.
This is my idea. Why don't we call this the Donatella experiment? And I'll go out as Donatella also.
All right, I'm loving
and
this.
and then within that, I have some choices as I greet different people. I could say,
Right.
"What's your name?" "I'm going by Donatella today," and see what happens. Or my name is Donatella. Or I spoke to someone who said she was psychic and told me that my name should have been Donatella, so I'm adopting it now. I don't know for
Oh,
how long. And I could do any of those things. I could decide how I want to frame it for the other person, or I could just say, "Hi, I'm Donatella." And there's a lot of options. I'm
so
leaning
that
into Donatella.
that's the other piece of this that my geeky permission self loves is that, so much of what I'm writing about in my book is that heightened sense of choice and and the dulled sense of choice, the dulling of our agency, the dulling of our identity, the dulling of our sense of options and choices and possibilities. And what I love about this is that once you open this little portal, it's like infinite choice as to who Donatella is, how she engages, what she says, what's her response, who is she? I don't know. I'm meeting her with
Exactly.
everything I say. I love it.
Yeah. One of the things I know from clown theater is if you put a clown nose on, if you change your face, you change what you can do because people recognize each other by faces. And so just by putting on the smallest mask, a little tiny clown nose, people will do things they don't ordinarily do.
Right.
Another thing is that I've been to the Museum of Ice Cream, which I know is also yeah, Museum of Ice Cream. There's one in New York. There's other ones.
Okay.
And the first thing they have you do at the Museum of Ice Cream is change your name. You choose an ice cream name. I had two of them. One of them was Wet Walnut Wanda, in honor of my grandfather loving wet walnuts, which was in honor of his memory. That's something he really loved. And the other one was Joan the Cone, which, as I
Actually,
realize it now, is also the name of an aunt that I'd never met. So it's interesting that those family names popped out. But the Donatella experiment is on.
I'm 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 feeling like this is something I'm so excited about the Donatello experiment. And I think those 2 points that you just made are so interesting about, how sort of physical shifts and actual, a new environment, a change to your appearance, a decision. Because again, for me, so much of my book is about like it's not some sort of meditation, it's an action. And permission is often um, experienced through an active state. So it's much easier to put the nose on and then start to explore what it allows you to become, as opposed to just trying to become that thing in your own head and then put the nose on.
Yep.
So that's actually a really interesting point too about the actual choices and the shifts and the physical actions that you take that create the new space for the new behaviors that will go along with it.
So let's go out and find out what the Donatellas are like.
Can we go anywhere? Can Donatella decide where she wants?
Anywhere. Absolutely. You can go anywhere and do anything. You do whatever it is. You determine what the length of your Donatella experiment, I think, and then go out and do it. Or don't determine the length of it and just put it on and see how long you feel like wearing it.
I'm loving this. Okay. And then we're going to film ourselves somehow as
Yeah.
Donatella.
Somehow, some way.
And then I think we've got to reconvene.
Definitely.
I need to report back on my Donatella, and I want to hear
Yeah.
about yours. Although
Yeah.
based on everything you've just said, this is sort of old hat for you. You're very accustomed to showing up as new. I mean, this is like an average Thursday for you.
Well, I definitely, I just being in the theater, I've been in the business of taking on other identities, but I've also spent a bunch of time transformationally looking at the identity I walk around with as if it's mine, experimenting with it, exploring it, seeing to take it apart, choosing which parts of it I actually like on purpose. And that's part of the transformational path. And it's interesting to talk about the ruins when we're speaking about the upcoming change days, because in some ways, if I pull apart some of the identity that I've been given, then I do have ruins that I'm standing in. And then what am I going to build from there with that? Which rocks am I going to leave by the way, and what new structures of identity am I going to put up?
Right. So that was my take a little bit with my session was two kinds of ruins. One, I feel like we're kind of living amidst ruins right now. Like I feel like we are living in the decaying buildings of societies that are in a state of unraveling, and we're kind of walking through them going, wow, that used to look like that and that used to be that. And some of that's great. Like some of it's fabulous. I didn't want that anyway. Some of it's like, oh my gosh, wow. I remember when I was a kid and I thought that looked like that kind of thing. So I think walking through the ruins of the world right now and sort of deciding what we're allowed to remake in its absence. And then what you've just described as sort of the ruins then inside of us, like my the body and the stories and the experiences and the shedded identities that we are bringing forward with us,
Yeah.
and how to intentionally, what you just said, sort of choose the ones we want. Because we
Yeah.
can.
Yeah. And I promise, living in New York City, I promise you that the grass grows through the concrete. No matter
Yes.
what, the grass will grow through the concrete in time. Okay, I'll see you later, Jillian, Donatella.
Bye, Barbara, Barbara Ann, Donatella.